Do you ever export a video, watch it, and think, yeah, this is fire? So you go to post it on Instagram, but you see that you just got absolutely smoked by someone else in your industry. You might even download the video from a sketchy website and break it down frame by frame, but you still can't figure out why your work is basically the Walmart version of theirs. Well, a few years ago, that was me, but after making thousands of videos, I discovered 5 things that instantly made my work look expensive. And after implementing these techniques, I started landing some pretty big clients who pay me some pretty nice rates. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 things that you can do today to instantly make your work look expensive. So the cameras we use these days are great, but we actually don't want our project to look like it came straight out of the camera, because expensive videos have a distinct, unique look, and we create this look by adding texture. We can add grain, noise, overlays, bloom, glow, all kinds of stuff. But most people use these completely wrong, and their textures feel like they're on top of their footage, as opposed to feeling baked into their footage. So let me show you how to do it the right way. To start, you need to be intentional. You can't just pick a random texture and slap it on top of any shot. That's like trying to find your wife at the club. It can work, but it's probably not a great idea. So you need to ask yourself, does this texture actually make sense for my project? So here are some examples of what to do and what not to do. Grain. Use this when you want to make something gritty or aggressive or dirty. I like to use this on black and white footage. Don't use this on nice, clean, polished footage, kind of like this shot right now. It just doesn't make sense and it feels out of place. Bloom and glow. Use this when you want to make something look softer and less sharp. This reduces harsh lighting and makes your footage feel more elegant. I use Hazy by Film Convert, and you can also use mist filters. CRT and VHS elements. Use these when you want something to look dirty and aggressive, but vibrant. I really like these because they're super versatile. Finally, transitional elements. Use these to blend colors, clean up awkward cuts, and add energy. I like to use lights, film burns, and lens flares. But let's say you do all of this and your video still looks cheap. Well, you're probably just using the wrong blend mode. By the way, you can just scroll with your mouse to cycle through the blend modes quickly. That's something I learned way too late, but once you find one that works, just tweak the opacity a bit and maybe even color the texture to match your footage better. One of the fastest ways to make your video look cheap is by using the wrong font. Honestly, I used to be terrible at fonts, but lucky for you, I've studied them for hours, so here's everything you need to know in 45 seconds. There's 4 main font types: serif, sans serif, script, and display. A serif font has these lines, which are called serifs. Use these if your project should feel traditional or trustworthy. These are used by banks, lawyers, jewelers, stuff like that. I personally avoid these 99% of the time, but here are some good ones. Sans serif. This literally means without serif in French. Use these if your project is modern or clean. I use these 99% of the time, and here are some that I like. Script. Use these for classy and formal projects like weddings. I don't really use these, but here are some good ones. And display. Display fonts are highly stylized fonts for titles and headlines. Just don't use these for captions. But what happens if your font still sucks? Well, you probably just need to edit the font. Try modifying the weight and the letter spacing. This will fix your problem most of the time. And if your font's hard to read, just add a small drop shadow. Guys, really quick, I'm building a platform for editors and videographers where you can work directly with me to learn how to make dope videos and make a lot of money. I'm talking like 10K, 20K a month. Guys, this is gonna be the best platform on the internet for editors and videographers who are serious about actually leveling up and making this their career. So if you're interested in this, click the first link in the description to sign up for the waitlist. I'm only launching to a limited number of spots, so first come, first serve, first link in the description. And in the case you need help ASAP and you wanna work with me one-on-one, click the second link in the description. I can help you with editing, sound design, finding clients, messaging clients, making money, all that stuff. All right, now we're getting into the good stuff. Camera movement and motion. How a camera moves is what makes a shot feel cheap or expensive. This is why big productions spend millions of dollars on motion control robots, stabilized cars, like all this crazy stuff. But thankfully, we don't need all of that because we can do a lot in the edit with a few techniques. Camera movement can be smooth or aggressive. Smooth motion creates a feeling of elegance, status, and control, whereas aggressive motion creates a feeling of chaos and energy. So how do you create smooth motion in the edit? Well, you can use Beziers and Easy Ease, but I take it a step further and use a free extension called Smoothify. This allows you to adjust the position and scale keyframes with just one curve, whereas with the graph editor, you have to do each separately, which can lead to some pretty weird results. So you added some smooth motion, but it still looks artificial. Now you just gotta add motion blur. I like to keyframe the intensity slightly at the beginning and the end of the animation, but Premiere only adds motion blur when the transform properties are animated. So sometimes I use a plugin called RSMB to add motion blur to the actual movement in the shot. But what if you want to create a handheld motion? Well, you can use the new wiggle effect in Premiere Beta. To keep the smooth look, you're going to want to use big sweeping motions. This makes the shot feel like you shot it with a big heavy cinema camera, where the movement is fluid and large and natural, as opposed to a small camera where the handheld shots kind of feel jittery and almost like an accident. All right, let's talk about color. I'm gonna show you one simple rule that completely changed the game for me. It's called the 60-30-10 rule. It's used in film, design, websites, branding, TV, like all that stuff. And understanding it will even help you dress better. It's where an image has 3 colors, 60% of a dominant color, 30% of a secondary color, and 10% of an accent color. The general rule is that the dominant color and the secondary color should be complementary colors. These are colors that are opposite on the color wheel. You see this all the time in movies. So if you have the luxury of setting up lights or props for your project, keep this in mind. But how is this helpful if you're just the editor? Well, when you go to color grade, you can use the HSL secondary tool to isolate and manipulate just one color. Boom, now you can get really creative. Keep this rule in mind when you're adding captions and graphics as well. I like to use yellow text because it complements the blue lights that I have behind me. But another way to make your work look more expensive is by going for more of a monochromatic look. Instead of using complementary colors, this is where you push the entire image towards one shade. Doing this creates a cohesive look, and it can help direct the viewer's focus by reducing the number of colors. Sometimes you just can't out-edit bad cinematography. So here's a few ways to instantly make your shots feel expensive. You need to create depth because cheap footage is flat and two-dimensional. To create depth, put objects in the background of your subject or the foreground. When you do this, try to shoot at a low aperture because a shallow depth of field is closely tied to the cinematic look. Also, if you want your videos to look expensive, you should be shooting at 24 FPS unless you need to put something in slow motion, obviously. But the look you get from 24 FPS is just unmatched. In 60 and a 24 timeline, it's just not the same. All right, next, use backlighting. This will pretty much make any shot look cinematic instantly. Next, shoot the shadow side of your subject. This is kind of like backlighting, but not as extreme. You just light your subject from the far side and keep the shadow side closest to the camera. Next, expose for the highlights. This is one of my personal favorite shots, but unfortunately the highlights are a bit blown out. In this shot, I exposed for the highlights. The fire is orange and actually looks like fire, whereas in the first shot, the fire is white, not orange. If your cinematography is on point, your video will look expensive before you even get into the edit. The overlays, LUTs, and effects can only enhance what is already there. Guys, the best platform on the internet for editors and videographers is coming soon. I'm super excited. It's gonna be sick. So if you wanna get cracked at making videos and make a lot of money as well, sign up for the waitlist, first link in the description. Follow me on Instagram at justin.james and subscribe because we're almost at 10K, which is super fire. And yeah, that's it. Peace.